It's the start of a new week. The weekend is officially in the books. It's another week for you to go out there, accomplish goals. You know, you can do anything. But this also means that another week of college football is in the books and another week of NFL action, NFL football at that, is in the books. And I'm here to discuss what caught my eye and to answer some of your questions, give my breakdown and analysis on a couple of things. Yes, it's that time. Welcome back to another episode of Monday Evening Quarterback. I can't believe this is the sixth episode. Time flies when you're having fun. My name is Christian Simpson, and I am the creator and the founder and all around football fan, and most importantly, NFL and college football analyst of a company called The Daily Blitz, where we specialize in everything football 24/7, 365. If you've been following along from the get go, what's going on? I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are staying safe. Most importantly, we still are in the midst of a global pandemic. And if this is your first time watching, hello, welcome. I hope you enjoy. I hope you're well, and I hope you're staying safe as well. So you're probably wondering, how does this show work? I can gladly explain to you if this is your first time tuning in. I look back at what caught my eye in college football, give a couple of thoughts, have some bullet points written down on my little notebook right here. I'm going to give out a game ball to the guy who had the best stats of the day, in my opinion. Um, I'll do the same for the NFL, talk about what caught my eye, wrote down a couple of bullet points on this same notebook, give a deep and thorough breakdown of certain things in both college football and the NFL. I'm going to give out a game ball to an NFL player. I'll do a little breakdown of Monday Night Football. I'm going to answer some questions, and I'm going to end the show by promoting how you can keep up with me and how you can tune in to listen to me outside of this podcast and this show, because I contribute to a couple of other shows on the airwaves, on internet radio, and one show is on live radio as well. But we'll get to that at the end of this episode of Monday Evening Quarterback, and let's dive right into it. It was week 8 of college football. Week 8. It just seems like yesterday we were getting ready for week 1, and here we are close to revealing playoff pictures and playoff synopsises and breakdowns and whatnot of certain things. One game I think everybody's been talking about since Saturday, the Illinois Fighting Illini and the Penn State Nittany Lions. Penn State coming off that bye. Last time we saw them play, they were in Iowa to face the Hawkeyes, and Iowa came back and beat them. Now, granted, Sean Clifford was out. He left with an injury, and you saw just how important he is to that Penn State offense. But now, he's back, and the one thing I always say, I think I've said it on basically every episode since I started this podcast, and that's, do not take your opponents too lightly. Do not overlook anybody, because if you do that, the other team will capitalize. And the fact of the matter is, that's exactly what Penn State did. Sean Clifford, he didn't look bad, but this was his first game coming off an injury. 19 of 34, a buck 65, and one touchdown pass, but he was sacked 4 times. So that Penn State offensive line really struggled to keep Sean on his feet. Noah Kane couldn't really get going, only 43 yards. Jahan Dotson was held under 100 yards. He caught 6 passes for about 69 yards receiving, and averaged about 11 and a half yards per catch. And look, let's just face it, Penn State looked ahead to Ohio State. And what's the one thing I always say? You can even leave it in the comments when you're tuning in, or you might even say it as you're watching this. The team that you're looking ahead to, win, lose, or draw, they will still be on the schedule regardless. And give Illinois a lot of credit. They hung around. But Brett Bielema had his guys confident. Illinois punched Penn State in the mouth, and Penn State probably now won't make the playoffs. I know a lot of people were thinking they were a lock to be a playoff team, but this is why you play the game, to determine things like that. 9 overtimes. That's that's something. This is now, from what I read, the longest game ever in college football history. NFL, take notes. Keep playing. Don't let games end in a tie. Penn State just didn't show up. Couldn't run the football. Defensively, they stayed in the game. I thought it was more so the offense that really hurt them. But give a lot of credit to Illinois. That's a big win. And when you struggle and you can win a game like that against a ranked opponent in your conference on the road, that does something for your team from a confidence standpoint. And you got to give a lot of credit to Brett having his guys ready to play. And Illinois, they were just a better team. Really didn't do a lot. Listen to these numbers right here. The running back Brown had 223 yards rushing, averaged about 6.5 yards, a little over 6.5 yards per carry. That's absolutely phenomenal. The defense did such a good job of getting after Sean Clifford. I said sacking him 4 times. So that was a very entertaining game if you watched it. Penn State definitely overlooked that opponent. They were looking ahead to the Ohio State Buckeyes, who they play this upcoming week on the docket of college football action, which I'll get into before I transition over to talking about the NFL. Let's go to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Tennessee. For a minute, it looked like Tennessee was going to make a game of this in Tuscaloosa. Tennessee started out early, jumped out to a 14-7 lead in the first quarter. Then Alabama outscores Tennessee 14-0 in the second quarter. So at the half, they were tied at 14. Then it was a defensive struggle in the third quarter. Each team allowed a field goal to the opposition, but that fourth quarter was where Alabama just really pulled away. Bryce Young was on his A game. Alabama outscored Tennessee 28-7. That's about 3 touchdowns. Bryce Young does it again, 31-43, 371 yards, averaged 12 yards per pass attempt, and 2 touchdown passes. Brian Robinson, 26 carries, $107 on the ground, 4 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns. Bryce Young also chimed in with 2 touchdowns rushing of his own, so he accounted for 4 touchdowns. I feel that ever since the Texas A&M game, teams are really going to give Alabama a true run for their money. I'll say this. Every game for Alabama here on out is a must-win. They need to treat it like a playoff game because they already have 1 loss. Now, if they had no losses, I'd say, look, they can cruise along. They can coast along. There's no problem. They'll coast until the SEC championship, which happens in December every season. But it's not like that this year. Look, they're the defending champs. Yes, it still goes through them, but they have to win every game moving forward, because you lose 1 game, the committee is not going to allow a team with 2 losses into the playoffs. They haven't done it, and they're not about to start. The only way I can see that happening is if they expand it to 8. So you have your 5 conference champions with their at-large bids, and then you have with their getting in, they're on that line of 4, and then you have 4 at-large bids, teams who just make it that are on the brink, kind of like a wild card in the National Football League or any other sport. That's when I think they'll allow a team with 2 losses or whatnot in. But yeah, Alabama, they've gone back to the drawing board ever since the loss to Texas A&M. They really shut down Mississippi State last week, and then they handled their business against Tennessee. Nick Saban just working his magic once again. He has a pretty good record against Tennessee from what I've read over the years. One of the games of the day took place in the Pac-12 conference that really doesn't give off a lot of traction, but Oregon Ducks, UCLA Bruins, both these teams are kind of similar because they have mobile quarterbacks, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I think I said his name the correct way, and I'm going to check while you guys are listening. I just like to make sure everything is good. Yeah, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR. I got something mixed up. And Anthony Brown of Oregon. Both guys are extremely similar because, they can throw the ball from the pocket, but they can make a lot happen with their feet. And coming into this game, when I wrote my preview for this entitled Gold Roses, I said UCLA has a difficult time with athletic offenses and fast defenses, and those are two things that Oregon had entering this game. Oregon looked like they were pulling away, but UCLA did make it a game. Oregon did win the game by 3 by a score of 34-31. It was a shootout, which you kind of expect in the Pac-12. I really like what Chip Kelly has going in Los Angeles. I know he had a couple of stints at Oregon, so he faced his former team. Then he went to the NFL for a couple of seasons, and then UCLA took him on, and they're gradually climbing that ladder and getting to where they need to be moving forward. I look at Oregon, they're at their best when they're running the football. Travis Dye, CJ Verdell, both getting their carries and whatnot. And that opens up the passing game. The defense had a tough time stopping DTR, as he's called. That's the quarterback for UCLA. But in the end, I just think Oregon, they were a veteran team. This is a young team in UCLA. And for Oregon to make a statement, they needed to win this game, and they did just that. They still have the one loss, but coming into the game, I can admit they were a little shaky moving since the loss to the Ohio State Buckeyes, because they looked good in that game, but ever since then, they've kind of been teeter-tottering on the edge and whatnot. But they got this win. They still have one loss, and they're on the outside looking in of that playoff picture, which we're going to talk about as well. So Oregon won a shootout. And I want to touch base about Notre Dame. That was another game that I previewed on the website. USC Trojans, Notre Dame Fighting Irish. To some, this is the most important rivalry in college football. A lot of distance between the two. But at one time, these two teams were battling for 1 and 2, like Alabama and Clemson were these last couple of years. I've been a little critical of Notre Dame because I look at how they've played as of late. We can talk about the Florida State game and how they looked in their second game of the year. Then they dominated against Purdue. They really put their best foot forward against Wisconsin, because they really pulled away in the second half of that football game in Chicago. Toledo was that second game. Kind of hung around. So remember, they won their first 2 games by 6 points combined. Then I remember telling some people, when you continue to play on the edge and get behind, there's going to be that one game where you're not going to be able to get back into it. And that's exactly what happened with the Cincinnati Bearcats. That's the only team that's beaten them. They come back, beat Virginia Tech by 3. But this game, I remember telling somebody coming into this game, the key for them was to get off to a fast start. And boy, did they get off to a quick start. I saw a lot of tempo. Jack Cohen was running the no huddle offense. So really trying to keep that USC defense on a swivel, no huddle, moving the ball up and down the field. And I said the key coming into the game was Kyron Williams. I know he's had a rough year. Everybody wants to criticize him, saying he's struggling and he's not the same back that he was last year. You got to understand something. His offensive line has not been able to generate any type of push up front. So with that being said, you play as well as your 5 up front. And he had a phenomenal game on Saturday that he was able to help open up the passing game. And the Notre Dame defense, they got after Keaton Slovis, rushing 4, sometimes even rushing 3, keeping that spy in the middle of the field, dropping everybody back in the secondary, keeping those safeties high and up top, playing center field or assisting. I know one takeaway from this game was the loss of Kyle Hamilton. I think he's one of the 3 or 4 best players in the country. For those of you who have talked to me off the microphone, I've raved about this young man. This kid, I think, is the next best thing to go to the NFL. Rangy safety, can play in the box like a linebacker, can tackle. You can send him on blitzes, but they keep him back where he's at his best, and he just has such great natural instincts of the ball. And Notre Dame really missed him in the remainder of that game, but they were able to coast along. They ended up winning that game by 15. I said they needed a dominant performance. This isn't super dominant, but they won by double digits. They pulled away. They stayed on top of the game. I think they had the lead the rest of the game. And that's actually who I'm giving my game ball to. That is Kyron Williams, the sophomore running back, carried the ball 25 times for a $138 and 2 touchdowns and a big win over the USC Trojans, who dropped to 3-4, unfortunately, but they play hard. That was my first time watching a USC football game in a really long time, and I was pretty impressed with what I saw. And Clemson got smacked at the hands of the Pittsburgh Panthers. Look, Clemson's just not a good team this year, okay? They are very, I don't want to say undisciplined necessarily, but they're not the team that I think everybody expected them to be coming into this year. It was an adjustment period. Who knows? Maybe Trevor took the offense with him when he went to Jacksonville to play for the Jaguars. But this Clemson team has a horrible offensive line. Defensively, they're going to keep you in games. That's always going to be Clemson's mantra. A great defense and running the football, but it's been inconsistent quarterback play. And there were years where Clemson would put hands in the dirt and just physically manhandle anybody that was in front of them. And that hasn't been the case this year, but it's a rebuilding year. Every team goes through it, unless you're the Alabama Crimson Tide. And they're going to be okay. Look, Dabo Swinney's one of the best coaches in the country. He's going to recruit, get the best players there. You still have Brett Venables, who's one of the best defensive coordinators, if not the best, in college football. And DJ's going to have a full year underneath his belt. It's been an adjustment year for him. I know he was the heavy favorite, or one of the heavy favorites, to win the Heisman, but that's not going to happen this year. It was a down year. All the great teams have them, and I think they're going to be back and running next year. By this time next year, when I'm recording an episode of Monday Evening Quarterback, we'll be talking about Clemson back on that national stage and one of the 2 or 3 best teams in college football. I can guarantee that. But let's give a little quick look ahead to Week 9. Can't believe it. Week 9, college football. 2 really big games on the docket in the Big Ten. One of them, Michigan State. Both teams are undefeated, and this is their first ever matchup where both teams are ranked in the top 10. I believe Michigan's number 6, and I believe Michigan State is number 8 or number 9. We're going to look that up real quick. But Michigan, they've been playing really good football this year. They have control. They're taking care of the ball. So Michigan is number 6. Michigan State is number 8. This game is going to take place in East Lansing. Last year, Michigan State went into an empty big house and just smacked Michigan around, forced turnovers, ran the football. They're getting better quarterback play. Both teams are getting better quarterback play. That's where I think both are similar, and they both run the football really well. I think that's what this one is going to come down to. I cannot wait to get my hands on that game. And then one that's really become a favorite matchup of mine. I've previewed it every year since 2017. That's the Penn State Nittany Lions, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Primetime game at the Shoe. Shaw Clifford, C.J. Stroud, who's been playing really good football as of late. He's really settled in to his own. Want to see how Ohio State matches up with Jahan Dotson. He is, I think, one of the best wide receivers in the Big Ten. You can make a case for him being the best. Hostile environment. Penn State has not beat Ohio State since 2016. That's where Ohio State was ranked number 2 and Penn State was unranked. They win that game. They roll moving forward, and they end up winning the Big Ten championship, but they were not selected as a playoff team, which was kind of baffling that year because they were a conference champion. You won your division and you won your conference champion, so they were on the opposite side of the bargain. But that's going to be a fun game, and those are 2 that I am previewing on the website. And one I was looking forward to months ago. Now, not so much because the matchup kind of lost its luster. That's the Georgia Bulldogs, the Florida Gators. World's largest cocktail game is played in Jacksonville every year. I know Florida beat Georgia, but this year the tables have really turned. Georgia's dominant. Florida, they've lost 3 games in a row. You know, at the time I said Georgia could really receive a challenge from Florida at that time, but Florida's kind of come back down to reality. Can't wait to preview Penn State and Ohio State, which is coming to you tomorrow. I'll start writing that one either tonight or tomorrow afternoon. And Michigan State, which will be previewed on Saturday about an hour or two before the football game. That's going to be an electric atmosphere. That was all I had for college football today. Let's jump to the NFL. So, week 7 of the NFL. You're starting to see who's real, who's not, who has a question mark over them, and who are you really concerned about. But one thing I wanna touch on, Tom Brady. Now, look, he's the greatest quarterback ever to do it, most accomplished. The guy is still playing at an MVP level in his 22nd season at the age of 44. Look at all the people he's outlasted. Peyton Manning, who's now a Hall of Famer. Drew Brees, who just retired. Eli Manning, just retired a couple of years ago, who beat him twice in the Super Bowl. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there. Even some of the defensive players that a lot of people in my age demographic grew up watching. Ray Lewis, Hall of Famer. Charles Woodson, Hall of Famer. Troy Polamalu, Hall of Famer. Ed Reed, Hall of Famer. Strahan, Hall of Famer. You know, he's really outlasted a lot of guys, and he's been in the league so long that one of his former teammates is actually a coach. That's Mike Vrabel in Tennessee, who I'm going to get into very shortly, because I have a lot to say about his Tennessee Titans. But Tom is really setting a lot of records right now, and whenever he decides to hang up, he's going to retire number 1 in a lot of major statistical passing categories in NFL history. In week 4, when he returned to New England, he surpassed Drew Brees to take on to be the all-time leader in passing yards. I think we kind of saw that coming. But yesterday, he threw a 600 touchdown pass. 600. Now, if some other guys decided to stay retired, this would have been set years ago. I mean, Drew Brees, if he didn't decide to retire, I think he would have reached the 600 touchdown plateau. Would have taken maybe 2 years or so, but I really think he would have reached it. But that's just credit to Brady for the work he puts in, the consistency he puts in. Dominant yesterday against the Chicago Bears. The Bears didn't score a touchdown. They were dominated 35-3 yesterday. So Tom Brady has been called Mr. 600. A spinoff of the movie Mr. 3000 that the late, great Bernie Mac was in. May God rest his soul. But, you know, there was one thing that happened in that game yesterday that just goes to show you that there are just some things that are way bigger than football. And there was a kid in the stands, and this kid had to be about 11 or 12 years old. He was young, and he held up a sign that said, "Tom Brady inspired me to beat brain cancer." Tom saw it. The legend goes up to the kid, gives him a hat, shakes his hand, has a moment with him, and that was just so cool to me. You know, I know Tom Brady gets a bad rap and all, but how could you really criticize the guy after that? He did not have to do that, but it's these fans that really make these athletes go, and that's why sports is so great. Buccaneers are rolling right now. Can you believe this is their first 6-1 start in franchise history? But that's what happens. That's the Brady factor. This offense is settled in. The defense is getting takeaways. The front seven is getting home to the quarterback. So this is a team to watch moving forward. I mean, they're still the champions, and if you want to get anywhere in this league, you're going to have to knock them out. And that's just straight facts. The next team I want to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, these are the new Bengals. These ain't the Bengals of old. We talked about so many improved teams like the Raiders. At one time, we were talking about Carolina, Denver. Both those teams have really come down to reality. But the Cincinnati Bengals, they are really trending in the right direction because I look at Joe Burrow And I rave about the swagger and the moxie, and most importantly, the poise that this kid shows. He's never faced. And this goes back to that magical year he had in Baton Rouge with the LSU Tigers. And last year, he was on a tear to win, and he was the favorite to win Rookie of the Year. But he ended up getting hurt, and it's just good to see him back on the field. Every time the Ravens pressured him, he just moved and within the pocket, or he would run it himself, and he was taking shots down the field left and right. Now, I'm going to serve myself a piece of humble pie here because I was amongst the many people who said the Bengals screwed up by drafting Jamar Chase. And I know he has great chemistry with Joe Burrow because they were college teammates, but it's working. And the offensive line has actually been pretty serviceable if we're being realistic here. Kept Joe on his feet throughout the game, and here's the way I could put it. What the Ravens did to the Los Angeles Chargers last weekend in Week 6 is what the Cincinnati Bengals did to the Baltimore Ravens yesterday. They just physically dominated Baltimore, punched them in the mouth, established the tempo of the game in their favor, and did a really good job of keeping Lamar Jackson in the pocket and making him throw the ball a little bit more than he wanted to. Never really let him get any additional yards with his feet. They let him, they did a great job of containing him. This defense has improved. This is a statement win for them. And here's the funny thing. Let's say the playoffs were to start today. The Bengals will be the number 1 seed in the AFC. Now, if you saw that coming, you need to be a betting man, or you need to come sit in this chair in this studio and record Monday Evening Quarterback, because obviously I'm not doing a good job with anything. But that's a huge win. And to me, Cincinnati, they have 2 really impressive wins this year. You punch Baltimore in the mouth yesterday, but earlier in the year, you smack the Pittsburgh Steelers in the mouth in Pittsburgh, and they beat Baltimore. In Baltimore yesterday, Jamar Chase was all over the field for the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's when you really saw Baltimore's secondary problems just come afloat. They could not get the ball going, and that was tough. That was definitely tough to see, but that was Baltimore's first game losing, since week 1, that Monday night game in Las Vegas. So right now, Cincinnati, they are in first place in the AFC North. They own the head-to-head tiebreaker right now over Baltimore. That second game between these two is really going to be interesting. I hope I get my hands on it. Hopefully both teams can stay afloat until that next game, which will be in Cincinnati in a couple of weeks. Green Bay. Now, ever since the Week 1 loss to the Saints, where they just looked horrible, this team has been playing very good football. They're methodical. And what I mean by that is when they don't have one aspect of their offense going, they're able to lean on something else. And that's what's been the case with the Packers. Aaron Rodgers, he's the MVP for a reason, kind of picking up where he left off. They're balanced offensively. Aaron just looks so comfortable now in Matt LaFleur's offense. I felt in that first year he was pressing a little bit. Aaron Jones got his money. He's making his impact. Devontae Adams is still Devontae Adams. And the other receivers, I still feel they need to step up because they're still just trying to force the ball to Devontae. But then again, I can't really put that on the Packers offense and Aaron Rodgers, because a lot of these teams, if you watch these Green Bay games, a lot of these teams are playing Devontae in one-on-one coverage. And in the words of my man TJ Hopkins, that's just disrespectful. Okay? You got to double him. You got to have that safety help over the top. Anybody but him, as TJ would also say. But yeah, Green Bay, they're looking good offensively, and defensively, they're actually staying afloat. But look, I have to be that guy. I don't know if I trust it because they're known to go on runs like this, and then they end up coming back down to reality. So only time will tell. But they're 6-1 right now. They have a huge game on Thursday night, which kicks off Week 8 against the Arizona Cardinals, who continue to roll. They had a scrimmage yesterday against the Houston Texans and kept their eyes on the prize, stayed focused. Now they can work on Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. But there was some unfortunate news prior to this game. Devontae Adams has been placed on the reserve/COVID list, so he will be unavailable for this game. That's a huge blow for the Packers offense. So now the others are forced to step up. That's another game I will be previewing on the site this weekend. That preview will be coming to you on Thursday. As far as what else I'm previewing this week, might as well just get that out the way. Previewing the Cowboys and the Vikings. Dallas is rolling. Minnesota has also been rolling. That's a Sunday night game on Halloween. And the Steelers and the Browns. This is their first meeting since the playoffs last year, where the Cleveland Browns went into Pittsburgh and upset and stunned the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know I didn't see that coming, but the Steelers went home courtesy of the Browns. Now, the final thing I want to touch on. I'd be crazy if I didn't talk about this, and it's the Kansas City Chiefs. I know I have a couple of questions about them, and a few which I will get to when I go to my mailbox. But when I look at the Kansas City Chiefs, it's time to panic. Let's put it that way. So I was talking to my dad last night, and he even asked me, what's going on with Kansas City? And look, the last couple of years from when Mahomes came in and became that starter and he won MVP to the year they won the Super Bowl, and even at times last year, they had the confidence where they knew they could just overblow people with their team speed and their big plays down the field. You're not seeing that. You're seeing more turnovers. You're seeing more sacks of Patrick Mahomes. Defenses are really buckling down to play them. I know they've been the bullies of the AFC for the last couple of years, but now they're being bullied. I look at Mahomes. He's been a little too irresponsible with the football. He's been very shaky. Teams are playing them tight across the board. Teams are rushing for. They're not blitzing. They're just getting home and they're attacking that Kansas City offensive line with pure push and athleticism. And then don't get me started on this Kansas City defense. They're horrible. I knew they were going to have their hands full with Derrick Henry. And the crazy thing is, he didn't really have that big of a game. Make Tannehill beat you. And Tannehill made a couple of big throws here and there. Kansas City didn't even score a touchdown yesterday. They were held to 3 points, which was their fewest since 2012. Kansas City is 3-4. And in last place in the AFC West, a division where they've dominated the last couple of seasons. They've won this division every year since 2016, and that's in jeopardy right now. Look, I know there's 7 games in, but look, they have 10 games left. It's time to panic. They were punched in the mouth yesterday. I wrote about this on the site a couple of weeks ago after they lost to the Buffalo Bills on that Sunday night, but look at the Chiefs' 4 losses and who they've fallen short to. They struggled against Baltimore. They were up by 11 in Baltimore, and Baltimore came back on them, right? Lost to the Chargers a week later in week 3, okay? Lost to the Tennessee Titans yesterday. So that's 3 losses right there. And then you lost to the Buffalo Bills. And all those teams that I mentioned are somewhat in the upper echelon of the AFC. This is the most intrigued I've been by the AFC in quite some time. Because if you look back at all those years when Tom Brady was in the AFC, you knew New England was going to be one of the top 2 seeds. Even when Peyton Manning was playing, you knew he was going to be on that 1 line or that 2 line in the AFC. And this year, it's extremely wide open and it's very unpredictable. And I think these next couple of months, from now until the season ends, it's going to be a really interesting storyline in the AFC. But Kansas City, it's not looking good for them right now. Teams aren't afraid of them anymore. Drew Brees said it a couple of weeks ago on Football Night in America, which which comes on NBC. He said that he said that the
Chiefs have been somewhat like those Pistons teams back in the 80s and 90s with Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars, and how they were the bullies of the NBA and how they were always beating Michael Jordan's Bulls. That's a really good comparison. And now, look at everybody that's beat Kansas City, who they've been bullies to. No, they've been pretty dominant against Baltimore up until this year. Been pretty dominant against the Chargers up until this year. Beat the Bills twice last year, once in a regular season and once in the AFC Championship game up until this year. And Tennessee's always kind of been that thorn in the side because they play a physical brand of football. But yesterday, they just overpowered Kansas City. And that was their first time meeting since the AFC Championship game for the 2019 season, when Kansas City did win a Super Bowl in 2020 when they beat the San Francisco 49ers. And how about Tennessee? That was the best football that I've seen them play probably since that game against the Baltimore Ravens in the 2019 AFC playoffs, because they were dominant. They just were physical at the point of attack. They established the tempo of the game in their favor, like I said about the Cincinnati Bengals a couple of minutes ago. And they ran the ball. Derrick Henry's throwing the ball. Look, Derrick Henry, to some, has been the best player in the NFL this year, and I can't disagree with it. He's just picking up where he left off. He's a grown man, and it's funny because last week on Facebook, a friend of mine tagged me or something, and he's like, this is who I would compare Derrick Henry to, and he put up a side-by-side picture of Derrick Henry and the Nigerian nightmare, Christian Okoye, who used to play, coincidentally, for these Kansas City Chiefs, and I said, absolutely not. He's a lot faster. Some people have told me he's like Jerome Bettis. No, he's a lot faster than Jerome was, and I love Jerome. Hall of Famer, just a good guy all around. Said he's like a Brandon Jacobs. No, he's a lot faster and a little bit more athletic. If I had to compare him to somebody, it would be maybe the Hall of Famer who played for the Houston Oilers, Earl Campbell, because he's big and he's downhill. I think he's a little bit faster than Eric Dickerson. Derrick Henry is his own breed. That's the only way I could put it. But yeah, that was a great win for the Tennessee Titans, and I really like Mike Vrabel as a coach. He's a player's coach. He can relate to his guys, and he was one of them one year. So they really play hard for him, and they leave it all on the field. Let's give away a game ball. Now, there were a couple that I could have given it to, but the one that stood out to me, I'm going to Cincinnati, the rookie wide receiver, who is my favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, Mr. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow's running mate at LSU, and now his running mate in the National Football League for the Cincinnati Bengals. Jamar carved up a pretty good Ravens defense. 8 catches, 201 yards receiving, and 1 touchdown. Not a lot of rookie receivers record 200 yards on a season, but he did, and he just looks so comfortable. Not bad for a guy who they said would struggle and he would have a down year, right? He's playing phenomenal football. Look, I could give a game ball to so many people, but I could only give it to one guy, and Jamar was the winner this week. With that being said, it's mailbox time. Let's go to the mailbox. I got a couple of good questions, and I just don't answer questions on here. I answer them throughout the week. You can email them to me, which is c.simpson@thedailyblitz.blog, or you can tweet them to me, you can Instagram them to me, or even if you know me personally and you have my number, which a lot of people do, you could send me those questions at any time. So here's the first question right here. This one comes from my man TJ Hopkins, who I'll be on with in a little while, in a couple of hours on the Prime, which is actually shortly, right after this. As soon as I'm done recording MEQ, I'm going right to the Prime. The grind never stops. So TJ asked me, who gives the Arizona Cardinals their first L? That's a good question. So I'm looking at their schedule right here. They have Green Bay this Thursday. They play San Francisco a week after that. Then Carolina comes to Arizona. Then they go to Seattle. Russell Wilson might be back. They go to Chicago to play the Bears. They play the Rams, which is going to be a huge game in the NFC West. They go to Detroit to play the Lions. They play the Colts on Christmas Day. They play the Cowboys on January 2nd, and then they play the Seattle Seahawks to close out the season. So if I had to give a team a chance to upset them, I could still say Green Bay, just due to the simple fact they still have Aaron Rodgers. I know Devontae Adams isn't going to play, but long as number 12 is under center, he gives them a great shot to win. Either them, I could see the Rams beating them, because the Rams are going to go in there with a big chip on their shoulder and a nasty taste in their mouth, because Arizona punched them in the mouth. They physically dominated them in week 4 in Los Angeles on their home turf, of all places, in Inglewood. That, or maybe Seattle when they play them in November, because Russell Wilson should be back, and I know Russell Wilson has a pretty good track record against the Arizona Cardinals. Wow, I almost said the Seattle Seahawks, but he plays for the Seattle Seahawks. So that's who I can see beating them. It's either going to be Green Bay, it's going to be the Rams, or it's going to be the Seahawks. One of those 3 teams. And TJ also asked another question. Does Odell get traded? Should he be traded? I could see it. I think Odell deserves better. When his head's in the game, he's one of the best wide receivers in the league, and he's a superstar in this league. Kids are imitating that one-handed catch. He's making those acrobatic catches in practice. I know it's been a struggle for him to stay healthy, but it just seems like when they force him the ball, good things don't come from that. And I love to see him on a contender or with an actual quarterback, because let's be real, no disrespect, Eli Manning was way past his prime when Odell was with the Giants, and Baker Mayfield is a little shaky and a little up and down. Maybe it could work with Case Keenum, but I'd love to see Odell on a contender, because he deserves it, in a bigger market, or even with like a Green Bay playing with Aaron Rodgers. That's a strong possibility. Should he be traded? Possibly, because Cleveland did play better without him last year, but hopefully he could find his niche and then just find a system where he's comfortable and complacent in. That's what I think is the biggest problem right now concerning Odell Beckham Jr. Thanks for those questions, TJ, and I have a couple of more. This one comes from my man Joe Grisso. So Joe asked me, let's look at it. Joe asked me, is there any reason for the 49ers not to start Trey Lance the rest of the way? That's a good question. Let the rookie learn how to navigate against NFL defenses. Remember, it's a lot different when you're in the NFL compared to college. The guys are quicker. The guys are a lot faster. They're stronger. They're more physical at the point of attack. Jimmy is more seasoned. Remember, just a couple of years ago, it just seems like everybody's trying to get rid of Jimmy and ride him out of town. Jimmy got y'all to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. I know he has trouble staying healthy, and I know Trey Lance is the future, but look, Jimmy was in a Super Bowl a couple years ago. I continue to start Jimmy moving forward. Maybe if he starts to struggle, or unfortunately if he gets hurt, which is bound to happen at times, then you go with Trey Lance. But nah, I stick with Jimmy. He's a seasoned veteran. He knows the offense. Everybody around him just has to do better. It's not just Jimmy. The offensive line has to do a better job of protecting him. Injuries are playing a part in the 49ers' struggles. Defensively, they're up and down a little bit. Their secondary is absolutely horrible, and I thought they were going to go back and get Richard Sherman, but no. I wouldn't start Trey. I kind of let him learn, but let him learn how to read an NFL offense and defense, and let him learn how to be a professional in the National Football League. Question number 2. This comes from Mark Sandlin. He asks, is it too early to say teams figured out the Chiefs, or Kansas City has a problem? No, it's not too early to say that. I've been saying this since week 3, ever since they lost to the Los Angeles Chargers. I said that teams have figured out the way to really limit them. You can thank the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for unveiling the blueprint. Because it's rushing 4, dropping everybody back, keeping that spy in the middle of the field, and then your secondary, I think, is a determining factor because you have to play Patrick Mahomes' receivers on a perimeter very tight across the board. Meaning, you're taking away the big play over the top, keeping those safeties high, and you're making Patrick Mahomes nickel and dime you underneath for 5 yards, 10 yards, maybe 12 yards at the most. So in other words, defenses are coming in with that mentality. Look, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us underneath, and not over the top. And if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to earn it, because the Chiefs have been a video game offense the last couple of years since Patrick Mahomes has become the starting quarterback. You could pencil them in for 27 to 30 points a game, and they're just having a tough time moving the ball down the field. And they're not methodical. And what I mean by that, like I said with the Packers earlier in the episode, the Chiefs passing game is struggling right now. Why not run the football? But I know Andy Reid, he tends to gravitate a little bit away from the running game. And to be honest, I don't think Andy Reid is himself. You guys remember the incident with his son, Britt, before the Super Bowl, where the little girl was unfortunately killed with him, and his son's on trial, so I'm sure that is on his mind, and there are just some things that are bigger than football. But from a football standpoint, the Chiefs have been figured out. Buffalo did a good job of limiting them. Baltimore did a great job of limiting them. Same with the Los Angeles Chargers, and Tennessee yesterday, I think, just really annihilated them and punched them in the mouth. I think with the Chiefs, they're going to have to be consistent. Every game for them is a must-win, but they know they're going to get every team's best because, like I said, they have been those bullies of the AFC for a while, and they've been amongst the elite category in the AFC. And my final question comes from my man, Clint Paul. Clint asks, how hot is Matt Nagy's seat? It's pretty hot. It's scorching. I just don't think this team wants to play for him anymore, because when you want to play for a coach, you leave it all out on the field, whether you win, whether you lose, or whether you tie the football game. And it just seems like he's lost his locker room. He can't adjust. That's the biggest knock with him. And I remember a few weeks ago telling one of my guys who asked me, whose fault is it with the Bears' struggles in the offense? Is it Matt Nagy, or is it Ryan Pace for not fixing up that offensive line? And I said it's hands down Matt Nagy, because he's not adjusting. And I know I might sound like a broken record player here, but look at that game against the Browns in week 4. What happened? Myles Garrett had the game of his life, right? So, with that being said, what do you do when you know a defensive player of his caliber is just wrecking your entire offensive game plan? You adjust. He didn't do that. I know he's not calling the plays. I know they were in that game last week against the Green Bay Packers, but they stood no chance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers yesterday. Justin Fields just looked angry, and his body language really said it all. But yeah, he's not gonna be the coach anytime soon. But look, I kind of have a soft spot for him because it was announced that he did test positive for COVID. I hope he feels better soon. You don't want to see that happen to anybody, no matter what type of rift or what type of grudge you have with them. But yeah, it's pretty hot. It seems to get hotter week in and week out every time the Bears struggle or they lose a football game. Hopefully they can turn it around and make things interesting, but it's going to take a total team effort. The defense is going to handle their business. It's been the offense that's been holding them back. They're definitely, I think, going to part ways with Matt Nagy at the end of the year. Those are all the questions I have for the show today. And with that being said, I'm going to end things right now. Thank you guys for tuning in. That's all I have. Time flies when you're having a great time, and I hope you enjoy watching this as much as I enjoy recording it for you all. As always, huge shout out to my family, my beautiful mother, love you so much. My beautiful sister Taylor, love you with everything in me. My dog / my son Sieves, who's actually at my feet right now. My other little sister Tanisha and her dog Kobe, who I was dog sitting a couple of weeks ago. I want to give a huge shout out to my cousin / big brother Sean Jameson, who really keeps me on track with a lot of what I do during the week, during the football season. He's really been advising me. Huge shout out to the Fabulous Four. That's Candace Carter, Kimmel Fryer, Jason Tyree, who helped me design my website, and Robert Butler. Also, my other guys, Rob Carter, my boy Mike Griffin, Alex Bennett, living out there in California, and then my other guy, Alex, or as I call him, Esquire, because he looks like Esquire from the hit movie ATL. I want to also give a huge shout out to my guy, Corey Harris, and my guy, Deshaun Elliott, for always supporting their guy, and my other two guys, the one I call Coach, Cole Johnson. Keep up with him on Cole Sports. A lot of great stuff. One of the true professionals in this business. And then our moderator who really keeps us on our feet, my guy D. Such a great guy, big sports fan, and he really sharpens me to be a better analyst. But they both helped me also become a better person, as did everybody else who I also shouted out. And I want to shout you out for tuning in and watching this and supporting me. Little preview of Monday Night Football before I go. New Orleans Saints, Seattle Seahawks. Now, when I look at the Saints, they don't have an offensive identity. When you looked at the Saints all those years under Drew Brees, what was their identity? Balance, right? They were able to run the football, throw the ball. Drew Brees would find the open guy down the field. Now that he's not there, I feel Sean is trying to force things a little bit with the Saints. With the Saints offense, they're going to have to run Alvin Kamara until Michael Thomas gets back. I think when Michael Thomas gets back, everything will be well, and the Saints should be a pretty good offensive machine. Defensively, they still have it. And as for Seattle, no Russell Wilson again. This is the second game he's ever going to miss, recovering from that finger injury. Geno Smith is playing. I feel they need to open up the playbook to Geno's talents and his skill set a little bit more. You're having a tough time running the football because you don't have an offensive line that can get push up front. Excuse me. So, with that being said, let him dink and dump. Let him move the pocket. Geno sat behind some veterans the last couple of years. Eli Manning with the New York Giants. Phillip Rivers in San Diego, now Los Angeles. And Russell Wilson the last couple of years. So he knows the ins and outs of the Seattle offense, and the Seattle defense. They're horrible. They're historically bad, and the Legion of Boom would be disappointed right now to see just how poorly the Seattle Seahawks are playing right now on the defensive side of the ball. Who wins the game? I like the Saints in this one. I think they're going to go across the country and they're going to run the ball. They're going to get a couple of sacks of Geno Smith and a couple of takeaways. That's when the Saints defense is at their best. I like the Saints to win this one 31-17. I think Jameis has a great game. He has to take better care of the ball. That's my little preview for Monday Night Football. Now, I said at the end of the show, I would promote how you could keep up with me at all times. And now is that time. Log on to the website, which is thedailyblitz.blog. I will always put how you can keep up with me in the links on how you can keep up with me and follow me in the caption of the video. Follow us on Twitter at DailyBlitz_61. Like the Facebook fan page, facebook.com/TheDailyBlitz. Follow us on Instagram, which is at TheDailyBlitz_61. Continue to watch this Monday Evening Quarterback. I will be back next Monday, God willing. Catch me on a Prime, which I'm about to go do very shortly, with TJ Hopkins, Israel Rivera, Matt James, and David Hoffman. Catch me on a Prime again every Tuesday with those same four. We look back at the NFL in on Monday, and then we look ahead and pick games the following week for the up and coming week of NFL action. Keep up with me on the Nerd Zone every Wednesday with Ronnie Coombs, John Danzo, Ryan Shaw, Christopher Lawrence. Catch me on College Football Showdown with Israel Rivera and Matt James. And then you can catch me on WCPT 820 AM in Chicago, which is the Sports Cubicle live radio in Chicago. AM radio at that. And if you live outside the state and want to tune in to show your support for me, I will more than gladly send you the link every Saturday morning and Sunday morning. You can keep up with me on Instagram as I record an episode of my IGTV series entitled What's on Tap, where I look ahead to what's on tap of the NFL and college football schedule. I'll do a recap every Sunday of what caught my eye in college ball, and then we just go from there. Guys, listen, it's been fun. Always love recording this, giving you my breakdown, and I love your feedback of this. Continue to follow along. This is only going to get better, I hope, and enjoy Monday Night Football. Make sure you catch up with me on the Prime. Very shortly, I'm actually about to jump on and film that with those guys right now. Keep up with me on the rest of the airwaves and on social media. Have a great week. Go accomplish your goals. And if anybody hasn't told you today, I am so proud of you and all that you're going to do, all you've done, and all that you're going to be in this lifetime. Much love as always. That is episode 6 of Monday Evening Quarterback. I'm Christian Simpson. Have a great rest of your Monday.